May I please now move ahead with our next speaker, with your kind permission, Dr. Kalam?
Yes, you can continue on that session. Adnan Tariq.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we are eagerly waiting to hear Dr. Adnan Tariq, who's going to be with us here in a few seconds. And he's going to speak about COVID impact on management of diabetes. Please, you've listened, you heard me right, diabetes. This is something that all of us are worried about. Eagerly waiting to hear from you, Dr. Adnan Tariq. Welcome on board.
Thank you, everyone. If you can let me share the slides with you, please.
Of course, the IT team will help.
Hello, Dr. Adnan, go ahead. You're welcome.
Thank you.
I think nobody introduced, so interrupting. Dr. Adnan is a very good researcher, a very refined endocrinologist and diabetes specialist in Scotland. And the rest is written there. Thank you.
No, thank you, Dr. Wajid, for the kind words. I can help myself as well. Don't worry.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wajid Khan. Thank you so much.
So as Dr. Wajid have told that I am Adnan Tariq. I work as a head of department in the endocrinology faculty in ICNSEA. I also work in as a consultant endocrinologist, diabetologist, and a general physician in Glasgow, UK. This is the hospital I work. It's one of the largest structural hospital in Europe, Queen Elizabeth University Hospital. I also work in 2 other hospitals as my clinics are based there as well. The topic is pretty huge. I'll try to summarize. There is a lot of medical jargon which will be used again for the benefit of the audience. I will try to be as simplification some of those jargon as much as possible. So I'll be talking about epidemiology of the COVID-19 and diabetes. I will also be talking about the mechanism and explanation for poorer outcomes in diabetes patient, how acute COVID-19 have caused problem with the abnormal glucose level, some facts about that, and outpatient work which has been impacted due to the effect of COVID in diabetes services in UK and generally all over the world. So the summary of the epidemiological data, it have 2 main aspects. One is the inpatient hospital work, the patient who are admitted in hospital, because we see a lot of admission in hospital, and COVID have proven to have caused a lot of harm, specifically for patients who have diabetes, along with developing COVID. So we'll be talking about size of the burden, we'll be talking about the severity of the burden, and then we will be talking about the hospital outpatient effect, what have been the effect of COVID on the management of patient, as diabetes is mainly a outpatient specialty. So size of the burden, there was a question, there's an increased frequency of COVID in diabetic patient? It's not been proven, but would there be more severe disease in diabetic patient? That has been proven. There has been multiple studies done. Some of the references I have put on my slide. All these studies have elaborated that patient who have diabetes, type 1 or type 2, and it's important to know the difference between the two, as type 1 diabetes is basically absolute deficiency of insulin. Patient cannot survive without insulin. So therefore, they have to be replaced with what they are missing, which is insulin. And the type 2 diabetes is basically a relative deficiency of insulin along with insulin resistance, which means patients do have insulin supply. In instances, they may have their body is not able to utilize that insulin well enough. Therefore, they needing more amount of insulin to correct the high glucose level in their body. So they are majority of the complication, and the topic of discussion would be type 2 diabetics in this presentation as well. Again, my apologies for a busy slide, but what I was trying to show here is that there are multiple studies has been performed, all analysis of different number of patients who ended up in ICU, and all of them have shown that there is a significant increased mortality in ICU admission patients who have developed, who have diabetes along with COVID-19 needing ICU admission. Another Scottish work, which I'm wanted to present here as well. Again, this is a study of looking at patients and population with the diabetes and the effect of COVID-19 on them. Scotland is not a very large country. It have almost 5.5 million population. Out of them, 5.8% have diabetes. And the hospital admission to the ICU have shown that the type 1 diabetics have 2.4 times higher risk of developing complications, significant complication and harm due to COVID-19, and 1.4% higher than the normal population who have COVID-19 and needing ICU admission in type 2 diabetics. So quite significant mortality and harm with patients who have diabetes and COVID. Risk factors which have been come up. So the common emerging themes have been patients with the male sex have more increased risk of developing complications, increasing age, having cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, heart disease, increasing body weight. Ethnicity, we have found that South Asian and Black population were more at risk. In South Asian population, Bangladeshi were the top at risk, and then Pakistanis, and somehow the Indian population out of the South Asian population in UK has not been at the same amount of risk as the Bangladeshi population. So there has been an element of social deprivation which has been having an impact on these outcomes. Obviously, having a poor diabetes control during admission, which means either patient is developing hypoglycemia, which means low glucose levels, or DKA, which is a condition where patient develop acidosis. It's an extreme situation of metabolic derangement of electrolytes and impact on kidneys and glucose level in the body, which without even having COVID could potentially be resulting in death. Duration of diabetes has been important because that defines the amount of insulin patient would have. Longer the duration of diabetes means patient would have less amount of their own insulin. Therefore, they can become more significantly insulin deficient and having a risk of developing DKA, which is basically a state of absolute insulin deficiency leading to harm. Poor glycemic control, poor glucose control at a baseline. In diabetes world, we assess the glucose control by checking a blood test called HbA1c, which gives us an average of 3 months previous glucose control. And we have seen that higher the HbA1c in patients, more their risk of developing and the complication from diabetes, from the COVID-19. And obviously, the complication which comes with diabetes generally tend to happen with longer duration or along with a poor control of diabetes. Therefore, patients who have already developed renal disease, eye disease, they would have been at more risk of developing COVID-related complications. Again, my apologies to putting up a complicated slide, but it's very important. It's not very difficult when we look about it. So here we are talking about COVID-19 affecting what was underlying mechanism, why we are more at risk of having problem with COVID-19, why it has been causing so much of trauma to us physically and mentally. So the COVID-19 affects our immunity. It modifies our immunity in a way which leads our body to produce a counter effect. Our body naturally has been built up to counter effect any organism which is trying to come and harm us. So when COVID-19 comes, it affects our immunity in a way that our immunity tries to fight back. One of the way of fighting back is producing enzymes or cells like cytokines, which is an immunity response try to kill these harmful objects. But here, the response is triggered in such a way that these cytokines actually overwhelm our own immunity system. It comes like a storm. Therefore, the very mechanism which is trying to protect us becomes the problem here and produces such a huge response that our body is unable to cope, especially in the lungs, leading to severe hypoxia and severe lung damage, which we have been seeing in COVID patients. For diabetes point of view, we know COVID can affect the beta cells, which are in the pancreas, which is the primary area which produces insulin. So if a patient have a already long duration of diabetes, having a poor glucose control, the COVID can shut down the production of insulin coming from these beta cells due to the inflammation around these beta cells, which leads to insulin deficiency. Insulin deficiency can leads to ketosis and ketone formation, which makes the blood cells or the blood acidic. Anything which have more acid in it would becomes harmful, so patient starts to become unwell. So we've been seeing patients with COVID-19 who come into the hospital with a high glucose level, or their ongoing mental control have become worse, or even to the extent that we've been finding patients admitted for the first time with a new onset of diabetes when having COVID. The factors along with having increased body weight, having more increasing age, having previous issues with coagulopathy, which means having clot formation, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, renal disease, all these factors can then generate much more significant poor outcome, i.e. death. Again, this is another slide I'm going to present, which is going to talk about the cell damage, how this mechanism is evolving. The blood cells all over the body, and especially the lining of the blood vessels, are affected with the COVID. That causes the damage to the lining of the blood vessels. That leads to breakdown of those lining, which generates then coagulation or clot formation. So patients developing clot formation, increased immune response due to this disruption of natural mechanism, and exaggerated response, which in it itself comes together as having multiple organ damage in way of having acute respiratory distress syndrome into causing the lung damage, kidney damage, and also liver damage, which all then goes into developing quite increased level of mortality in patients. So the trends we've been seeing is that we've been finding that severe patient with diabetes and severe COVID have come into the hospitals with quite significant hyperglycemia, which been challenging. That on one side, we are looking at patients, especially in the early part of the pandemic, when we have not understood COVID as well as we know now. It has been very challenging to be able to control this level of hyperglycemia. This hyperglycemia we've been seeing in patients even without using dexamethasone. Dexamethasone is a steroid which we use now as a first line in patients who have lung damage and their oxygen level is dropping. This is an anti-inflammatory effect, but on the other hand, it makes the body very insulin resistant. So it causes glucose level to go sky high, and it becomes very challenging in patients where you are trying to treat them with dexamethasone, but on the other hand, you're struggling with their glucose control. A patient with pre-existing type 2 diabetes generally needed IV insulin, and to the amounts which were never heard of. We generally start patients with insulin level of 0.3 to 0.5 units per kilogram of their body weight. And here we've been using 2.2 units per kilogram of their body weight, which has been huge. For example, an 80 kilogram of a man, if he's needing to start insulin, we would start them with about 24 to 30 units of insulin. But here, the 80 kilogram gentleman was needing almost 160 units of insulin, twice the amount of their body weight. So hyperglycemia was also present in patients who have no diabetes, no history of diabetes, as an acute response, and also the new onset of diabetes. So I'll rush through a bit more with some of my slides because of the time as well.
Yes, Dr. Adnan, how much we wish to hear from you, but we have just 2 minutes more. We'd love to hear from you because knowledge needs to be disseminated. We just have 2 minutes, so the floor is yours.
Thank
you.
So overall, this have caused a lot of distress and problems. We developed multiple local protocols. Everyone came up with different protocols. There are a lot of protocols came out from various organizations. All the common theme was the increased use of insulin, early use of sliding scales, different effects. A closing thought was that diabetes was one of the reasons which have kind of is an invitation to have more complication, looking into a better control and managing patients during the hospital stay and after they've been discharged being important The outpatient management wise, we were not able to have any outpatient clinics, and the restriction and lockdown increased the waiting time. Medical staff being deployed into looking after medical patients. There were staff shortages and exhaustion, all led to increased stress on the patient and more need of patient engagement with the diabetes team. We developed telephone clinics, video clinics to try to counteract those. We established pre-review clinics where we did blood tests for the patients, their screening 2 weeks before their appointment date with the consultant on the telephone, so that we have the results with us when we speak to the patient and try to give them as much as possible there. But there was still a limitation, as patients were still not happy to come into the hospital to get their screening done due to risk of COVID. The take-home message is that we are entitled to make decisions if we have diabetes or we don't have diabetes. We know that physical health, healthy lifestyle will always help to improve our quality of life and keep us healthy. In the fight against COVID, vaccines have made a huge difference. So please get vaccinated if it is available to you till we find a better solution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adnan. In fact, on behalf of all the delegates, I wish to thank you for giving us a complete correlation between diabetes and COVID. So you created a fear, in fact, you spoke about obesity, hypertension, and cell damage. I think a lot of us would start thinking about, looking at the control aspects. We have a time for a quick question, just one question, if the audience would like to. Anyone? Any of the delegates?
Yeah, I have one question. My question is, my dear.
Yes, Professor. Conference chair himself.
Yeah. I'm trying to know that, to ask our doctor. You see, the diabetes is a generation-wise, or it is depends on the habit of the food habit.
Diabetes is a Yep. Thank you for your question, Professor Alam. Diabetes is a multifactorial disease. It is not one factor which contributes. Genes always have an impact. Therefore, South Asian men and women are all at increased risk. And again, it comes to have a common genetic pool. But there are other factors like the lifestyle, which have a huge impact. Basically, the lifestyle have made it much more worse, especially in patients who have genetic predisposition or the family history of things as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Conference Chair. Thank you so much, sir, for asking a valuable question. And thank you, Dr. Adnan. That was indeed a wonderful presentation. You created food for thought. Thank you. Thank you very much. My dear delegates, we would move on to another interesting topic. In fact, it's by Professor Zulfikar Ali Chumro. The topic that we would be discussing, and he would be presenting on overview of current COVID-19 pandemic and its repercussions in Montreal, Canada. So what happens in Canada is what we are going to know in a few while. Thank you very much. Professor Zulfikar Ali Chumro, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, everybody. Good morning or good evening, wherever you are. And thanks very much. It was a thrilling experience to come and share whatever we know and whatever researches we have done into this current situation. So without taking much time, I will try to be as brief as possible. And if you can let me share the screen, that would be great.
You can now share the screen, Dr. Ali.
Thank you. All right, everybody can see my screen now?
Yes, doctor. Yes, of course. I think you have a big projector right in front of you.
Yeah.
The way you are looking at it. Yes, please go on. Thank you, doctor.
Perfect. So we will try to speak about the current COVID-19 situation in Montreal. And first of all, I will go through a brief explanation of really what is COVID and what are the basic factors which make this virus. So just give me one moment. I just need to I will stop sharing the screen just for a few moments. Just need to get something.
No problem, doctor. We have 16 minutes. No issues.
Yeah.
The meantime, interesting fact is that we all three are classmates in medical college, same medical college and same class.
What a reunion, I must say. It's a reunion. Absolutely fantastic. Thanks for letting us know about this. So after the conference, you're going to party? Three of you together? Here we go. Yes, he's here. Back, Dr. Ali.
You can still see the screen now?
Not yet, doctor. Yet to see it. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to view what's happening in Canada. Yes. Meanwhile, Habiba, hats off to you for holding up. And you also put a nice, interesting slide in between. I noticed it. Hats off to you, dear.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was just to motivate people here, you know. They're doing great.
Yes, Dr. Chumbro.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see something. Okay. Now I think it's okay.
Absolutely fine. Thank you, doctor.
Okay, perfect. So we will talk about the nomenclature of the virus itself. What is it? So COVID-19 is the name of the virus which was discovered in 2019. Why the name was given? It's COVID is CO for corona, VI is for the virus, D for the disease, and because it was discovered first in 2019, so they have given the name COVID-19. And the real name is SARS-CoV-2. And the interesting thing is that the COVID-19 is still in discovery. So every now and then they're discovering new things which are going on with this virus. So this is about the nomenclature. So next we will see about the variants. What is a variant? So just to give you an idea, human or whatever living things on Earth, they have the ability, or this is a natural ability to adapt themselves to any changing condition. For example, if somebody stays in the hot summer desert, and then he tried to move and shift to a place where it is very cold, initially he will suffer, but then his body will adapt to this new environment and make him give him all the necessary abilities to adapt himself and to get used to this new environment. So it's the same way. Viruses, we are talking about the COVID-19. So variants, what happens is there is some change in their genetic material where they tend to become a little bit more complicated in a way that they try to survive by changing themselves. So this gives rise to new variants. So there have been several new variants which have been discovered since the pandemic. And just to list a few of them, the UK variant, which is B117, which is also called the Alpha. Then there's the Beta virus, which was discovered in South Africa. Then there's a Gamma, and just a few months ago, everybody were talking about the Delta virus, which was discovered in India. And currently, in the whole world, the Omicron virus is more prevalent right now. So what happens in the virus, why they become more contagious, or what happens to them is there's some change in the spike protein. So this is a diagram of a of the virus particle itself. So as you can see, there are some spikes. So when the virus changes itself, these spikes, they become more numerous, and they tend to attach easily to the body membrane and gives all the complications which they give. Okay, so why these variants are of concern or of interest? So whenever there is a change in the nomenclature, in the characteristic or the physical features, it gives rise to some complications, some problems in the community. So first of all, it may cause more severe disease among those infected. More severe disease, it pertains to more symptoms, more complications. And another thing is it becomes more contagious. Contagious means if somebody is infected in one household member, it spreads around the household members very easily. So this is called contagious. And the same virus, whenever there is an infection, the body, it has a tendency to fight against these viruses or any infection. So when there are variants, they tend to become refractory. So the body immune system, defense mechanism, they cannot cope with a new virus, new variants. And it may give more complications and more hospitalizations as understandable. And usually to detect a virus, there are some special tests done. Now, when the tests are done regularly, we can detect if somebody has got the coronavirus or not. But if there are some changes in their characteristic, regular tests, they can't detect those variants. So there are some other specialized tests which are needed. And then lastly, vaccine, they give lots of protection to against COVID-19, but the effectiveness is decreased if the viruses change themselves for those variants. So that's the reason the vaccine, they give a lot of protection, but the effectiveness decreases. So now we are going to see what is a caseload in Montreal. This was updated last December, but this one is a recent one. So there's a lot of information on this slide. As you can see, the COVID-19 pandemic, this is the data was gathered in Montreal itself. And maybe you may have known that the Montreal itself has got approximately 5 to 6 million of population. So the virus, we have got few waves. The first wave started back in 2020, February or March. This is the first wave, and total we have got 5 waves. And the fifth wave was the most devastating. As you can see on this diagram, this is a daily amount. So approximately 4,600 cases were recorded daily, only in the city of Montreal. And that was the peak was on the 10th of January. And right now we are getting out of this wave. And 2 days ago, we are getting around 400 cases per day. And the one important aspect of this diagram is, you see there is a red line here. This is a time when the tests, the availability of regular tests was saturated. People were not getting the time or the appointment necessary to do the COVID-19 tests. And this value may underestimate the amount of daily cases. So moving on to the next slide, this is another slide showing what was the amount of people infected and the total caseload. As you can see, the arrow was going upwards. Now, what are the effects of vaccine? What is the benefit of vaccine? So we have seen that vaccine, it gives lots of protection. Some people, they get the vaccine, but they start thinking, I have taken the vaccine, and in spite of this, I have been infected with COVID. But we will see what are the major benefits of vaccine. As you can see on this chart, the cases, the amount of the percentage of cases, approximately nearly 80% of those who have been tested positive were unvaccinated, and only approximately 10% of vaccinated people contracted the virus. So it gives you an idea about the protection, the amount of protection that the vaccine give for COVID-19. And if you see in the next slide, the hospitalization rate among unvaccinated people is 80%, approximately, more than 80%. And those who are fully vaccinated, only 7.4%. So in the middle, there are two charts. These two, 6.0% or 6.5%. So for example, this chart, for those who have received only one dose of the vaccine and the amount of time is not yet reached where the virus, the vaccine can give 100% of protection. And this one, cases not yet protected, maybe some problem in the body itself where the vaccine is not effective. And the next slide will give a similar figure about the vaccinated people who have died. And in this, approximately 75% of people who died were not vaccinated, and only 9.8% of cases were vaccinated who died. And regarding death during the COVID-19, most of the people who died were above 75 years old, just to give you an idea about the death. Now, indeed, the COVID-19 has given us lots of problem regarding the general population, about the psychological impact, the mental disturbance, all these throughout the world. But recent research which has been carried out only in the city of Montreal, we have discovered that Montrealers, they are more prone to be affected mentally. And recently, people are more tired about what's going on. The pandemic is stretching. It's been nearly 2 years now, and it's a long journey that they are going through. So recently, the studies they carried out, they found out that approximately 28% of people who stay in Montreal, they suffered from some types of panic attacks or generalized anxiety disorder. 47%, that's a lot, who complain of some sleep disturbance. Approximately 33% complained of some irritability. 55%, they told that they don't have that power to deal with the current situation. And approximately 1/3 of the population, they mention about loss of interest in their daily activities. So this is showing that among people, lots of people, they have been affected severely by this current pandemic. And in Montreal itself, there are some risk factors why people of Montreal, they are more prone to this mental disturbance. Majority of people, or we have got a lot of the research which has been done, and they show that those people who are 18 to 34 years old, they are more prone to get these mental disturbance. If somebody is female and they stay with kids, without a male inside, they are more prone. Those who have low income or they live alone. And just to give you an idea, in Montreal, more people live alone than the rest of the world. And then when people see the media reports about what's the current situation, they see that the COVID-19 is having a huge impact on the economics, on people, hospitalization. They see that the workforce of the hospital is suffering. So all these reports create a negative emotional response for them. And this also it's a risk factor. And those people who work in the public health or in the hospitals, they are essential workers. They are more prone to suffer from mental disturbance. And this is understandable that new migrants, they don't have the support needed. They are more prone. And in Montreal, it's a French community where people speak French. And if there are some language barriers where they can't express themselves, this is another risk factor. And Montreal itself has got the longest length of sanitary measures in the world. It has been stretched to 37 weeks where curfews have been put, or restaurants or bars have been closed, schools have been closed. So all these, they help or contribute towards the mental factors. And the last
Very
slide,
informative, Doctor.
Yeah,
Very informative. We just have 1 minute here.
Yeah, and this slide, I like it a lot. It gives you an idea about what people's behavior can do for the communication of this disease. So here you can see one person is infected and he infects 2 more person, and what change of reaction can occur where hundreds of people can be infected. But if you break the transmission from one person to other, you can see that there's a break in transmission, and you can save hundreds of people to become infected. Okay, so this was the last slide. So I thank you very much for your attention. And
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. It was indeed a very informative inputs that you've given, especially your diagrammatic representation towards the end. You proved yourself to be one of the best professors because you started with the nomenclature. You started explaining the meaning of COVID right from the basics you had gone through, and really informative. Good inputs and good thing. We have a quick question for anybody from our delegates. Any one quick question, please? One question we can take. Anyone?
I can ask a question.
Yeah, please.
Of course.
Okay, thank you so much, Doctor. It's wonderful presentations. But I have a general question, that is, because it is supposed to be done with like one people to another people to another people. But what is happening since this peak period, it looks like it's become aerosol. Other than how come like 5% to 60% it rise in suddenly week? Do you have any idea about that?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. When you were speaking, there was some break in the communication. Can you please ask the question again?
Because so far the statistics says that the progression of COVID, that was a linear, that was not so abrupt. But all of a sudden it shows the peak was so high. So how come it can be spreading over human to human other than the aerosol?
Yes, definitely. Okay. So I think you were referring to this, to one particular slide where there was a big peak in the transmission. Yes. So there are some factors which can be explained with this. And the first and the most important contributing factor was the new variant Omicron, which was discovered in late December. So this virus, it is very contagious. So it spreads around people very, very easily, more than the Delta variant. But fortunately, it doesn't give that much complications. So what happened is when, just to give you an idea, back in December 21st, something, 4 labs made some research about, they tested around 100 to 200 samples on one place, and they found that around 13% of these tests were of Omicron variant. And after 3 weeks, they repeated the same situation, and they found that almost 85% of these tests were of Omicron variant. So just to give you an idea about how much was this was contagious. So this explains about the huge peak which we had back in end of December. This is one of the main reasons. And second reason, some of the other reasons we can relate to end of December, this festival period, end of year gatherings, lots of people, they're going to shopping around. So they don't respect the sanitary measures that much. And this also explains about the huge peak that we have seen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mansoor. Thank you, Dr. Mansoor. That was a wonderful question. One quick one-word answer I would like to expect from you, Dr. Ali. If you have observed well, which vaccination do you think is, having a less effect or probably the best? Or could say Sinopharm, or you're going for Pfizer or Covishield? Which one do you think? You told us to get vaccinated, and you also told us that there are less impact of COVID being affected if you're vaccinated. According to your observation, which particular vaccination does not have much, deaths or is safe enough comparatively?
Yeah. So
you
right
haven't
now,
asked.
Yeah. So right now, Health Canada has approved only 4 vaccines, which are the Pfizer, the Moderna, the Johnson, and the AstraZeneca. Other countries, there are some reasons why they don't have that much, maybe some economic reason or financial reason. Many countries, they are using Sinopharm or other locally made vaccines, but in Canada, these are the only 4 vaccines which have been affected. And if somebody has been vaccinated with any of these 4 vaccines, they are considered protected if ever they come to Canada. Regarding other vaccines, we don't have that much information. Maybe it is effective, but we haven't made any research about those.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you very much, Dr. J. Ali. It was a pleasure having you, and very good inputs you have given us.
Thank you. Can I ask one question?
Yes, may I know who? Of course, Dr. Khan.
Dr. Raji.
Your colleague. Yes, of course.
So actually, looking into the slides of Montreal, you mentioned that the fully vaccinated people have more chances of getting COVID as compared to partially vaccinated.
Yes.
In comparison to that, in London, data was published from January to July, it's National Statistics of England, that partially vaccinated people have more chances of getting virus as compared to fully vaccinated. They put it on 21 days and everything being covered. So I was surprised why in Montreal fully vaccinated person, even the figure is very less, 1% only. But still, why fully vaccinated? It means we should go for partial vaccination. We'll get more help.
No, this is not the case. But there are few explanations which may be given. So, for example, if somebody is fully vaccinated, they would think that they are free to move around. So they go around, they go everywhere. But those partially vaccinated, they have a tendency to stay back. So I'm not fully vaccinated. It will take me some time to get vaccinated. So they respect the strict sanitary measures. And for those who are fully vaccinated, they just move around. Maybe this is one of the reasons why the data is confounding like this. But definitely you have to get the full vaccination.
Let me share a breaking news, Professor Lata. It's just come down. Prince Charles has been tested positive COVID 15 minutes back.
Oh,
Prince Charles has been vaccinated 3 times, triple vaccination.
oh,
And
oh, he's been tested.
He had COVID in April 2020, and he was tested positive today afternoon in UK.
Oh my God. Then the question, a
And he
big
met
question mark.
yesterday. He met Priti Patel and Rishi, all the Home Secretary and the Chancellor for a dinner last night. So all of them are getting tested.
All to be quarantined.
He
This
needs
is
to
a
get a
new-
good dose of
continuing
vitamin
fact.
C. He needs to have a good immune system then.
Yeah.
He
So
would go
what the
for now
professor
all-
is saying, what Dr. Ali is saying, if someone is even vaccinated 3 times, 4 times,
vaccinated.
you still have to take precautions.
But they
Yeah.
call it a variant. So, you can't really judge what exactly can, attack the, those cells and things. It's called variant. So that's why we are still in danger. It's the age of the insects right now. We have to be
Yeah.
very cautious.
But
This
prevention is
creating-
always better than a cure.
Dr. Kalam. Yeah. Yes, my dear Habiba.
I was saying that prevention is always better than a cure.
Perfectly right. Rightly said. We have a big philosopher here, Habiba.
We should move to the next stop. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. J. Ali. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure having you here. And hats off to you. You can only
Thank you.
get the
Thank you, everyone.
updates and the inputs and the data. Now we have with us another eminent speaker, Mr. Dr. Mulk Muhammad Mola Muhammad Baraso Joseph. Welcome to you, sir. And the title that he would be speaking on is the role of digital health in supporting students during the COVID-19 pandemic. Very much needed. We are so eager to hear you. Thank you so much for coming in, Dr. Mola, Dr. Joseph. Thank you so much. Please kindly proceed. We are eager to hear you.
I just want to mention that he can
thank you
extend
so
by
much,
5 minutes for
Dr.
coffee break after that.
Lata, and with respect with the CEO of SPRIC and the chair of the conference committee, good afternoon from Canada. Hope all of you are doing well. So far, I'm at the end of this COVID arena, and we learned a lot of things from our previous colleagues regarding the COVID, how it's affecting us, and how to stay safe. But this research, this is a secondary research. It's not conducted initially with me, but it was a lot of investigation was done based on the research and this from the statistical data. The reason behind we had to do it, and I had to do it because as a faculty, we saw the how can the students are depressed, why the students are not able to work. And before starting, let me share my screen. So it's going to be because of this pandemic, we have sent back our kids, the students, to home, as they have nothing to do other than staying home with a lot of time, and they're so much engaged with the internet. They're Zoom, Skype, Bongo, doing the class, sitting simultaneously. They are doing the class 5-6 hours, which caused them mentally and physically stressed. Right? Some of them couldn't take it. They become frustrated. They lost their weight. They lost a disorder in the eating habits because of this like uncommon atmosphere. It's not healthy. They are not comfortable. They cannot go out and meet their friends. So this potential hazardous environment gave them hazardous situations. So this study was conducted how they are behaving in this period and what kind of digital support system, virtual support system we can introduce just to give them a little bit of relief from these situations. So our objective was to conduct with the mental health issues with these students and how the potential this environment that threat every students and how they are struggling with this virtual learning system. So based on that, the study was conducted with number of journals with the Statistics Canada data, and also the data covered from World Health Organizations. These are the couple journals we used, and we conducted our research. And based on that, we have to go through the issues, why it is happening. The number one issue was the platform they're using. There, of course, I told you the Bongo, Zoom, then other one, whatever. They have been stressed with sitting down in front of the computer for long hours. Not only that, they have to do their assignments, they have to work group study, and they have to present their study. And it's a numerous work, continuously sitting down. It's like they lost the feeling of living a human life. They are just mechanized, sitting down in front and getting all the informations, and again sitting down in front of the computer, working and reporting. So this one gave them psychological effect of their work. Mental, they are not able to take it because they are forced to stay in front of the table with the computer, and they are forced to communicate. All this modality has changed their mental state down. This is the first couple problems has been identified, and the thing is that how we are going to recover. First is we introduce the digital virtual system can be one, which is compassionate learning system, where they will get the artificial intelligence backup support from there. When they will be sitting down in front, when they'll be feeling bad, they can go to our virtual system and get all the group activities is there. They can meet their friends, they can play, they can do all kinds of things, taking the virtual support system. And secondly, we want to introduce an proactive advisory service. Once they are in the system, they can have an advisory system. They will keep all kinds of information with that. And the machine learning system, if they feel bad, they can just one-stop clicking with their computer, and they will be automated with the service, what kind of service they want to go. They want to need a psychologist, they want to go to the doctor, they want to go to the hospital, they want to meet with their friends virtually. All kinds of service will be enacted with this one-touch button. And this is the most appropriate tool that we suggest the student. If you need any help, get out, click on the button, one button will go and solve your problem. And finally, upon research of all of these things, we are saying the compassionate listening system, and this is the most effective system that a student can entertain in their daily life. When they are missing their friends, missing their family, they can go out threatening of contamination of the COVID virus. And second thing, through this implementation of digital health solutions, a point of care support system can be introduced, where the supporting system, they can only call a button and the rest will be assured by the support system. And the research work was referred by conducting studies from this and this couple journals. And thank you so much for listening this, and the floor is open for questions.
Thank you. Well on time, Dr. Mansoor. I should tell you, Dr. Muhammad, well on time, much appreciated. And you have quite, beautifully explained the psychological behavioral change that happened to students because of the complete change in the model, educational model that they are going through. So well explained. And you also told that there are, some support system virtually where the peer group. So it's a wonderful initiative. I really think we have a quick question from the audience, if possible, any delegates, because after this we'll have a small break, and if possible during the break, if we can start off, if our presenters are ready, because it's, I think, almost 1 o'clock, late night in Asian countries. Yeah.
Oh yes. This is afternoon in Canada, so it's.
So you're lucky. Okay, so it's late night over here. So Habiba has been there. Me and Dr. Kalam all of us were there since morning. So, a really wonderful presentation. I really appreciate each and every information. So anybody with any quick question as of now? Otherwise, we could ask Dr. Kalam for his advice, whether we should go ahead with the next set of presentations or should we have a break in between?
Yes, I think we can go on. I was just going to ask if you're feeling very tired, I can take over. Don't worry. But I think we can move on, because if the presenters are here, we can move on into the...
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Manzoor, Dr.
You're welcome.
Muhammad. It's such a wonderful presentation. Thank you for,
My
on
pleasure.
behalf of the chair and entire team, I thank you for your presentation.